Hello everybody, Danny Music Man here and welcome back to the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are doing well. I have a question. Do you have a thing in your life that defined an era or time of your life and maybe shaped who you are or just generally changed you as a human being? Well, that can be a lot of things. That can be maybe a person, an experience, music, a movie, or in this case, even video games. And ladies and gentlemen, for me, a game that changed everything, a game that completely defined my childhood and the way that I look at games, is Half-Life 2. And since the Half-Life 2 20th anniversary just happened, I want to tell you guys about my favorite game of all time. So the story begins basically, I'm a little kid, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and our family is blessed with the acquisition of the Nintendo Wii. That was our first and my first video game console ever, and I love that thing to death. I'll always have a soft spot for the Wii, even the motion controls, which I know a lot of people might have a problem with, but I enjoyed it. And yeah, and with the Wii console, I started playing video games, and that's where my, a light bulb turned on. I was like, oh my god, video games are the you know what I mean? They're the stuff. And really the only two games that I played or three games was Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, and of course Wii Sports, which came with every single Wii console. And so that's kind of all I knew, and so by default, I would say Lego Indiana Jones became like my go-to game and what I would consider to be my favorite game, even though at that point I didn't really have a concept for, oh, this is my favorite game, or oh, I don't really like this one. It was just Lego Indiana Jones, that's my game. And that's how it was for a long time. And for about 4 or 5 years growing up, that was kind of the extent. I dabbled in the old Angry Birds on the original iPhone 3G, but it doesn't really count, you know what I mean? So years later, I saw my dad. He would always play games in his office, and one day I walked in, and even though he wasn't playing, Civilization 4, I think that was the newest game at the time, I walked in and I saw him playing this weird game where it was like in a forest, and some guy had this like orange gun, which if you know what I'm talking about. And I was kind of like, what the heck is that? Because I had never seen that before. It looked really realistic. And for me, all I knew was that Lego Indiana Jones and Lego Star Wars were how games were supposed to look. I didn't have a concept for games looking like real life. And so when I saw him playing this, I was like, what the heck is that? And then immediately there was this kind of mystique and mystery and kind of like, what is he playing? What game is that? And so I later realized that this was Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and the beginning of Half-Life 2 Episode 2 in the first chapter, To the White Forest, where, the Combine portal explodes and all that stuff, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Years later, moving to Florida, and being just a little bit older, a little bit wiser, I was like, you know what? I now kind of been introduced into the world of PC games, and man, let me tell you, my first introduction to PC gaming was the Half-Life universe. And Half-Life 1, I played the original one, the original 1998 game on Steam. I played Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, and let me tell you, that was the absolute, that I fell in love with Half-Life, and it was just a love story and a love affair ever since. And since that era of being, I would say, 12 or 13, maybe even younger, 11, 12, 13, I can't really remember. It changed the way I view video games, and storytelling, environmental storytelling, world building, and just atmosphere, and how good a game can be, and how good a story can be. So that's my story of Half-Life 2 and how I kind of became enthralled by the Half-Life universe. And over the years, I got several things like the gravity gun, which I will never, ever, 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 ever get rid of because I love it so much. But yeah, I just want to talk about, Half-Life 2 and why, or some of the things that it does so well that really captivated me and made me call it the greatest game of all time, in my opinion. If you're watching this video, then you almost definitely know the story and world of Half-Life, but for those who don't, here's a very brief, truncated SparkNotes version of what happens. Spoilers ahead. You're Gordon Freeman, a 27-year-old MIT graduate working at the Black Mesa Research Facility in New Mexico. You're assigned to a special experiment. You push a crystal into a beam, it opens a portal and starts leaking creatures from an alien world named Zen and invade the facility. It's your job to fight aliens, fight the military, trying to silence all witnesses, launch a rocket, kill some tentacles, get some cool weapons, enter the portal to Zen, kill the Nihilith, accept the G-Man's job offer, and get put in stasis. Half-Life 2, the G-Man wakes you up from stasis to a completely different Earth than the one before, one being run by a territorial invader race named the Combine, who have seized control of Earth and everyone on it. It is up to you, Alex, Eli, and several others to stop them, and help lead the resistance to take down the Combine, and along the way, and across the 2 episodes, you drive a water boat, shoot down some helicopters, make your way through one of the scariest video game levels ever, drive some cars, kill some Combine in an abandoned prison, make your way to the Citadel, prevent Dr. Breen from going through the portal, blow up the Citadel, go back into the Citadel to delay it from blowing up again, get out of the city, almost die, wake up in the mountains, get to White Forest and deliver vital Combine data that can close the portal in the sky, take down some Striders, and watch Eli die in one of the most iconic video game cliffhangers of all time. Oh boy, I can't wait for the next... Now that we got that out of the way, one of Half-Life 2's greatest strengths is the way it conveys themes and atmosphere through environmental storytelling. I could talk about this topic for hours, but just for now, here are some examples. Right at the beginning of the game, you find yourself at a train station. One of the first things you see is Dr. Breen welcoming the passengers to City 17. Seems innocent enough. But as you make your way to the next room, you're able to talk to the citizens, and without dumping exposition awkwardly, you get a sense for what the situation is and about the world that they now live in.
Don't drink the water. They put something in it to make you forget. I don't even remember how I got here.
Oh, they're always full. No one ever gets on, but they're always departing.
I see they took your suitcase too. They can't get away with this much longer.
What I love is how what they're saying aren't clunky exposition paragraphs that you find in a lot of video games, but instead feel very natural and help you imagine the lives that these people have had to live, and that these people have been through a lot with so little words. A more environmental example is when you reach the apartments later in the first chapter, and you come across the little children's playground. However, when you interact with any of the playground equipment, you can hear what sounds like children playing. This is such a brilliant example of environmental storytelling because with that interaction, you start to think to yourself, hey, wait a minute, why haven't I seen any kids so far? And the sound effect helps reinforce the thought that maybe children don't exist in this highly surveyed, locked-down world that the Combine have created. There are so many other examples in Half-Life 2 of the amazing atmosphere and environmental storytelling that I can talk about, but play the game for yourself. I wouldn't want to spoil it for those who haven't played it. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the revolutionary physics engine that Half-Life 2 was almost built around. At the time of Half-Life 2's development, physics in video games existed but weren't polished and that realistic. When the game prompted you to pick up an object or push something like a box or a crate, that was pretty much about the extent of what you could do. But Valve wanted to revolutionize physics in video games for Half-Life 2, so they built the Source Engine, which allowed them to trump Half-Life 1's graphical and physical capabilities. Watch this example from E3 2003 when Valve demonstrated the Source Engine for the first time, and the reactions from the crowd.
Materials. So if something looks like wood, then it sounds like wood, scrapes like wood, floats like it, and if you shoot it, it'll fragment like wood. Materials in the physics system interact with each other, so a set of steel drums floating will behave exactly how you expect. Didn't think this would be complete without a giant pachinko machine. complex surfaces. There's no limitation on the complexity of those interactions. So it's this level of believable and consistent interactivity that opens the door to a wide variety of new gameplay mechanics.
Now this will run on my 486.